With the success of the 1965 British film Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, it was decided to make a follow-up film, using the same basic format. This first film was a comical look at the early years of aviation, based around a fictional race from London to Paris in 1910, bringing competitors from around the world, represented by an equally international cast.
From all over the world they came. America, Italy, Germany, France, Japan, England.
That included the likes of Red Skelton and Benny Hill. Well, the follow-up film, Monte Carlo or Bust, was based on the Monte Carlo Rally and placed in the late 1920s. Although in the U.S. it was marketed as Those Daring Young Men and Their Jaunty Jalopies, to better associate it with the earlier movie. Once again, bringing together an international group of characters designed around perceived stereotypes of the period, specifically from Britain, Italy, France, Germany, and America, using some of the same actors, including Terry Thomas, Gert Frobe, and Eric Sykes. The film focuses on 6 teams, paired up as direct competitors on the same route.
There will be 5 starting points. They will all meet at Chambéry. Those competitors who survive will now all travel the same route to Monte Carlo, where they will finally have to race against each other.
The primary pair taking the route from Scotland being Chester Schofield, played by Tony Curtis.
May I introduce Mr. Chester Schofield II?
The second? There are 2 of them?
An American who won half of the fictitious Armitage Motor Company in a poker game, and Sir Cuthbert Ware Armitage, who inherited the other half of the company, played by Terry Thomas. The two make a wager for control of the company by competing in the Monte Carlo Rally, a 1,500-mile endurance run.
Some kind of a race?
No, it isn't a race. It's more of an endurance test.
Each taking their idea of what the company should produce.
We'll both enter for the Monte. You drive the roller skate, and I'll drive the Nifty 9. The winner takes all. Fair enough?
Sir Cuthbert's car is the traditional Armitage, the Nifty 9, a car created for the film, reportedly based on a Fiat chassis, with bodywork based around Austin and Morris cars of the period. Schofield's entry was the sportier and more modern Triple S, based on a replica 1936 Aston Martin 2-liter, possibly with some hints of Alvis thrown in as well. Most likely also Fiat-powered. Perhaps not exactly period correct, but it is supposed to be an experimental car. Sir Cuthbert's co-driver is his assistant Percy, played by Eric Sykes, a womanizer who is blackmailed into helping Cuthbert cheat.
Well, take this picture, for instance. Isn't that you next to this girl without any clothes on?
While Schofield's co-driver is taken out of the race before it even starts.
My driver went ahead and got himself a case of the,
forcing him to officially compete alone. Taking the Swedish route are a pair of British Army officers from India, Major Digby Dawlish and Lieutenant Kit Barrington, played by Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, who have entered the race to get recognition for various Dawlish inventions.
This is a bit of a secret weapon. I can only tell you it's going to come in pretty useful.
This is the fog lamp, especially penetrating, sees through anything, this cat.
It's a unique and I think rather handsome Dawlish anti-pedestrian klets.
Their car is a Lea-Francis, of which several were made for the film due to the many gadgets they use. Going against them are a pair of escaped convicts from Germany, Otto Schwartz, played by voice actor Peer Schmidt, and Willie Schickel, in disguise as Horst Mueller.
Will not Herr Müller object?
It is unlikely. Herr Müller is at the bottom of the lake.
Played by Gert Frobe, perhaps best known as Goldfinger.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
They have been coerced into using the race to smuggle stolen gems.
If not, you will be joining Herr Müller.
Hidden in a spare tire mounted in their Mercedes SSK, also a replica built for the movie. These two teams have a rivalry based primarily on national pride, with the final 2 teams starting in Sicily, the first being a pair of Italian police officers in a Lancia Lambda, a replica, of course.
Just look at it. The most beautiful car in the world.
Angelo, who dreams of being a famous race car driver.
Don't you want to be the very most important racing driver in the world?
And Marcello, who's just girl crazy.
No, I want a nice girl with a nice big...
Played by Walter Chiari and Lando Buzenka, although they have to learn to drive first. The characters, not the actors. And pretty much everything they have went into purchasing the car, so they need the prize money. The other team is a group of French girls that consist of a doctor and 2 medical students, supporting the women's movement in a Peugeot for a sort of battle of the sexes, led by Dr. Marie Claude, played by Mairead Dark, although they have to convince a race official that they had already crashed into to let them enter the race. In Scotland, once it is determined that Schofield can attempt to go it alone, the race commences. But the drivers don't get far before coming upon an obstruction in the road, which Schofield takes an off-road detour to go around, causing his car to take some damage, creating an opportunity for him to encounter the Lady Betty, who is actually Cuthbert's cousin and is a plant to distract Schofield, which she does quite effectively, but not enough to take him out of the race. Meanwhile, on the road to Malmo, the lost are leading the lost, through the snow and onto a frozen lake, where they disrupt some winter sports, angering everyone, including each other, and possibly earning some penalties, before ending up on a toboggan run, and then getting caught on a ski lift. But they eventually make it to the checkpoint, where the cars are being searched for contraband.
We've never had customs interfere with a rally before.
And we have never before received a tip-off that one of your competitors was smuggling jewelry,
which the Germans deal with by a shifting of suspicion to the not exactly innocent English.
These are purely for our personal consumption. I'm a very heavy smoker, and Barrington here is a very, very heavy drinker.
Elsewhere, the girls stop off for a cool-off, which the guys try to take advantage of, ultimately leading to some changes of uniform. Then Cuthbert sabotages a fuel stop, which backfires slightly, but he has a backup car waiting nearby, having anticipated potential issues. Eventually, however, all 6 teams make it to the meetup point, where a night in a hotel changes the dynamics a bit, and relationships blossom. But Chester manages to drink a sleeping potion just as they are getting ready to head out the next morning. He naturally tries to drive anyway, but he falls asleep, so Betty tries to take over the driving.
Oh dear, what have I forgotten? Ah, yes, the joystick.
Which ends rather poorly. Well, the officers lead a charge using the Dawlish snow melter, basically fire and a cow catcher. It doesn't work particularly well, and a crash puts an end to it. But it does work better than the Dawlish snow stopper, spring-loaded scoops they had tried to use previously. What does seem to work, mostly, is the Dawlish Super Snow Tractor, basically their car converted to tracks and skis, which does help with their rescue of Chester and Betty, as does their Indian hemp tow rope, although perhaps not quite as effectively as they'd hoped.
It's stretching, sir.
Yes.
Keep after me! Keep out of the way!
Then the doctor also shows up and gives Chester a temporary pick-me-up to help him finish the race. But the medical crew doesn't make the last bid into Monte Carlo, as there is a crash and they are obligated to treat the injured. Those who do make it to Monte Carlo must still compete in a time trial to determine the winner. And the Darvish rocket booster takes that team out of the running, due to rapid unscheduled disassembly. Which means Cuthbert manages to win, but he also gets caught with the stolen jewels that he didn't know he had, leading to the discovery of his cheating,
and has the effrontery to suggest that I stole them. Do you mind telling him how we got it?
Well, a chap brought it down from Paris when we secretly swapped cars.
which gets him both arrested and disqualified. So the trophy goes to the second place Germans, who get recognized and arrested, meaning the Italians win.
You are not likely to be arrested, are you?
Oh, no.
And Chester manages to finish, therefore winning his bet. As stated above, the main cars in the film are all replicas or custom-made, which makes sense when considering stunts and damage, not the sort of thing one would typically do to real classic cars. Although the movie is chock full of actual classic cars, ranging from a Pontiac Big 6 to a Bentley 4.5 liter, and a Rover 8 is used as the original Armitage that is on display in the factory, and there are many others. Not surprisingly, most of the laughs come from the comedians, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
I say, sir, don't think I'm imagining things, but that lady looks as though she needs help.
By Jove, I think you're right, Barrington.
And the movie was well received overall, in spite of its parallels to the 2 year earlier The Great Race. Perhaps because the film has an almost classic Disney feel to it, being lighthearted family fun, yet with plenty of focus on the racing. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below, and like and subscribe.